All right, I'm now joined by a very special guest, Jay Jaxland. He is a pitcher in the Minnesota Twins system. He's also the host of the Brushback Podcast, available wherever you listen. Jay, it's great to see you. Thank you so much for hopping on this morning. How are you doing?
Good. How are you doing today? Thanks for having me on here, Justin. Thanks for mentioning the podcast too. Yeah, just started, had a great time. So yeah, for sure, appreciate it. Doing great. How are you?
I'm great. I actually wanted to start with the podcast, the Brushback. What kind of inspired you to, start doing content and start telling stories from your major league career?
It was just like me and my co-host Trayvon. Like we're getting older in the game, and we just wanted to kind of give back and tell stories and just get guys on that we played with that we feel like didn't get as much shine as they probably should have when they were coming up. And it's a bunch of like African American baseball players coming on telling their stories because like I mean, our our demographic in baseball is very small, but the guys in the stories that we're telling, and you listen to their stories and the numbers they put up, and you go back and look at their careers, and you're wondering like, okay, like there maybe should have been a little bit more of us in the major leagues, or maybe that got a little bit further and just got a couple more opportunities. So it was just something just to give guys a platform to tell their stories and just express how they feel too. Because I mean, there's some guys that were overlooked. Like I feel like when I was coming up, and it's just been fun to catch up with the guys and hear their stories. For the most part, it was stories and upon stories, and just was like, hey, might as well just make it a podcast.
I love that. Yeah, that's such a great idea for one too. So I was reading an article about your clothing brand, Team Jaxland, and it's motto of "In Smiles We Trust." What does that slogan mean to you, and how did that all kind of get started?
It started in Japan at first. It's just started from like a little logo that somebody made because like I would finish my innings every time with a smile. So, and I mean, I just like being happy. I mean, I've come up through my life and I've realized that the more that you're happy, like the things become easier. I would say not that life like is necessarily easier, but it gives a little bit more of a positive, like peaceful spin on things if you're a little bit happier with your day to day and happier with yourself. So I was just grateful to just be out there every day, first of all, and then getting the job done, second of all, and just, I started smiling, and then somebody made a logo, and then it became a whole t-shirt, and then from the t-shirts we started making it a brand, and then I was like, you know what, like the motto needs to be "In Smiles We Trust" because it's a happy, positive, peaceful place, and Team Jaxland is based around me. And me personally is like I like to be as happy as possible, and like smile a lot, and my nickname's Smiley J. So it just kind of all tied in together.
And I was reading it, a portion of the proceeds go to a worthwhile cause too, right?
Yeah, portion of the proceeds are going to NICUs and NICU related things. We're trying to get a library built in one of them now, or just donate more books. We're actually sending off a check. Like I said in the story, we were sending off a check, but we've actually got more people buying clothes, so we've had to keep pushing it back to get more to total it up before we send it off to see how many books or how much the library is going to cost. But I think right now we're at around 3,500. So it's been good, but it's going to building a library or giving books to the NICU at the University of Utah, and then also possibly the NICU and Children's Hospital up in Toronto, possibly as well. But other NICUs that might need help, and in the cities that I've been playing in, but mostly the University of Utah because that's where my son, was born last year, and so that's what the proceeds will be going to as of right now.
It's such an amazing thing you guys are doing. How can people get involved? Is there a website?
Yeah, the website's teamjaxland.com. Just buying merch if you want to do that. Because we're not taking direct donations just because, I feel like if you're going to donate to us, just donate directly to those places in general. Like we're just taking proceeds because like it's just something fun to do, just to have the word and the clothing line spread out there more, and just, have people smile and get positive, happy people wearing the clothes. Because I mean, they're fun. I mean, it's been fun process like making the clothes myself and coming up with the ideas and different like designs and everything. So if you're going to donate to these specific places, I would say donate directly to them. But if you would like to buy clothes and support in that way, you definitely go to teamjaxland.com and come up with a hat or a shirt or a bag or something for sure.
Dude, that's amazing. I love it. I'm gonna check it out right after this. That's such a cool thing. you mentioned your kind of like your mindset of just like positivity. I'm wondering if there is a moment in your career you can look back to where your mindset shifted to that of just like pure, every day I'm going to come with a smile. Is there a moment you can kind of pinpoint for that?
I think the moment would be like I was just laying in bed one day, and I was I was asking the man upstairs to be like, hey, like, is baseball going to be like my career? And if it is, like, I needed to make more money at it at the time just so I could get through the off season. Because when I was coming up, we didn't make a lot of money during the season. Like you've heard the stories of the minor leagues where it's like you're making only like, eight, $900 a month going through the minor leagues. So like you have to make it through the off season and going to spring training to try to like, get to next year. So and I had a family, so I was like, hey, God, like, hey, if baseball is gonna be it, like, I need to get something and get a job doing this and get a winter ball job where I can provide for my family and be able to be just feel comfortable and at peace where I can play and be myself. And if that happens, then I'll never take this thing for granted again. And crazy enough, next day got a phone call and like was literally got an offer to go for winter ball that was going to be enough to cover like my expenses for the off season and pretty much through spring training. So it was awesome. And after that, I was just like, hey, I'm going to be happy and enjoy baseball as much as I can whenever I can. And I just kind of tried to take that attitude. And then just that's evolved into just every day of my life, just being happy and grateful for every day I wake up. And that's been kind of huge in my life. I'm actually writing a book about it coming out this in October and November.
Dude, no way. What
Yeah,
do you have a
I'm
title
doing a
picked
lot
out?
of random stuff.
Yeah.
The title's not out yet. We're letting the book come together, and then I feel like the title will come at some moment when like throughout the process. But we're about we're getting almost halfway through the book right now. We're almost halfway done. And so far, I like the direction it's in. I feel like it's going to help some people, and I'm writing it honestly to hopefully just help one person. Hopefully, it just makes one person's day a little bit better, makes them, a little bit more positive, a little bit happier, and make them, help them live their life to be the best they can and enjoy it.
That's awesome, dude. I cannot wait for that to come out. I'm gonna mark my calendar, right? That's gonna be so cool.
I
Um,
appreciate it.
so you've been in the game for such a long time.
Yeah.
Like, how have you kind of navigated the mental side of baseball? Like, there's obviously it's a game of failure for the hitter's perspective. Like the pitcher's perspective, I imagine it's kind of the same thing. How throughout the course of your baseball career have you navigated the mental side?
I think just as before, just trying to stay positive through it, trying to enjoy each moment, trying to enjoy being out there every day instead of worrying about, kind of like the other things that are going on. I think there's been a few times I've wanted to give up on this thing. And those times, every time, like the people around me that have supported me have been like, hey, first question is, are you still enjoying baseball? Are you still having fun playing it? And if my answer is yes, then it's like, okay, I can deal with the rest of it because as long as I don't let somebody take like the happiness from it and the joy from it, then I feel like I can get through the rest of it. Because I mean, at the end of the day, like this was a dream of mine. I'm living the dream. So it's not like I should be able to let somebody take that dream away from me, right? So you can kind of deal with the rest of it by immersing yourself in like what you think is your happiness, I guess. And so that's what I've kind of done. And I guess it's worked.
I had a question about being a relief pitcher.
Yeah.
That's such a unique role in that if you have a bad outing where your ERA is going to get like ballooned up and it's going to take a while to get it back down, is it frustrating when you're looking at your numbers and stuff that like see them get so inflated to like try to like deal with like, and you don't know when you're going to pitch again? Is the relief pitcher mindset kind of a harder one to navigate than people might think?
I think it is just because of like what you just said. Like you never know when you might pitch again, especially if you've had a bad couple outings. Like you might sit for the next like week or so, and then that next time you come out, you feel kind of rusty because you haven't seen hitters. But you have to be in the mindset of I have to go out there and do whatever I have to do anyway. And if your numbers end up being inflated or terrible, then you kind of just live with. But you just have to trust the process and like trust yourself. And the thing is, like, you're going to lose confidence sometimes because, like you said, your numbers are what keeps you in the game and what keeps you pretty much having a job. So, you look at it and you're like, dang, like you start panicking a little bit when the numbers do get inflated because like you might get worried about like your job, your security, your safety, you know. But at the end of the day, I think if you have confidence in yourself and know that like you've been working at it and you've been doing what you're supposed to do and giving your best at it, then I mean you can live with the results. I feel like at that point.
Yeah, because you guys are pitching 1 inning at a time. So like if you give up 1 or 2 runs, like that, your ERA is going to be kind of not great.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've always wondered, especially for closers too. I feel like that's the ultimate. Like everybody's looking at a closer's numbers, like, oh, this guy, got to get him out of here. One run, phew. But we've had other relief pitchers on that have talked about just like the toll of pitching multiple days as a relief pitcher. And even on days that you're not pitching, like you might still get warm. How have you kind of navigated health and durability throughout your career as a relief pitcher?
You just, I've been blessed. I've been lucky, I would say. The beginning of my career, I was a starter, so I was ingrained in a routine at first. But the second half, I've been a relief pitcher, so I've kind of figured out a routine. But I've also thrown so many innings, and you just try to like just gauge your body. I would say, like I've learned to listen more to my body as I've gotten older. So the days that I'm like, okay, I can push it, I push it. The days that I don't push it, like it's because like, okay, I need to save that energy for maybe the game if I have to throw, because you never know. And then, you know, you're going to get banged up here and there. And so you just kind of try to go through it the best you can, if you can, until the point where it's like too much, you know what I mean? So as a relief pitcher, you know, you might be out there 4 or 5 days out of like 6, you know, and you try to grind through it the best you can and give what you have. But you know, you're gonna break down at times, and those times, like I think you have to try to rely on trusting yourself and knowing yourself enough to, you know, tell somebody to get you help if you need it, and just hopefully they do, and then you come back and you're stronger. But um, being this long in the game at this point, I mean, I've just been lucky.
Yeah. Is there a time where you can remember like between actually going into games and then even on the days that you're not just like still getting hot? Like, is there a stretch where you remember like you said, like 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 7? Like, do you remember those?
Yeah, I remember all of them because I mean my body remembers all of them too. But no, I remember them. I mean, I've had some this year where I've thrown like 2 days and then, I mean, 2 games and then a day off and then try to get like 2 more innings and then like maybe like 1 inning after that. Like I had it earlier in the season and I feel like my body kind of took a toll on that. But when I was in Japan, there's weeks where I threw like 5 out of 6 games or 4 out of 6, for sure 4 out of 6. There was plenty of 4 out of 6 games. And then I probably got hot and warmed up probably the other two, depending on like how that stretch went. So yeah, there's been a bunch of those. I remember quite a few of them, but you know, you do it for the love of the game. Like I said, it's a dream. Like it's what you, if you put the work in and you trust yourself through that process to hopefully hold up, and then, like I said, you trust your body, and you listen to it when it gets time to, you know, back off a little bit. But I feel like those stretches are just, you know, you just grind like you just grind through them. They hurt, but you just grind through them because, like I said, it's what you love to do.
You mentioned that you started out this whole thing as a starting pitcher.
Yeah.
How have you kind of evolved as a pitcher between going back then when you were a starter to now where you're a relief pitcher? Like how have you as a pitcher kind of evolved throughout that?
I think I've just gotten older. I think I've matured. I think that's life. But I think in baseball, the quicker that you can figure that out, it's the quicker you get to the big leagues and find your role and stay there and things of that nature, right? So I think as a starter, it helped me like have like more command. But then transitioning later on as a reliever, I think I got to be more aggressive and fiery, and you know, I've matured. And then as I've gotten older as a reliever, I feel like, okay, revert back to your starter days and knowing how to pitch instead of just being trying to be power and aggressive all the time. So it's just been a maturation of the process, I guess. It's been a long time.
Yeah. I was listening to the Orioles game the other night, and Grayson Rodriguez was talking about adding and subtracting pitches. Like I think
Mhm.
he's like, I had a cutter, I didn't like it, I got rid of the cutter.
Yeah.
How have you kind of added and subtracted pitches in your career, and like what does your like arsenal look like now?
I think For the most part, like as a starter, I had like a 4 pitch mix, and then as a reliever, I transitioned to the best 2 to 3 pitches out of that mix, and like I've gone back this past like year, um, the Twins like my 2 seamer and my changeup more, so I started throwing more 2 seamers and changeups more this year, and but before this year, I was mostly 4 seamer slider, just the 2 pitch guy for the past like I think like 6 7 years, but you add and subtract depending on hitters counts. You try to just figure it out how you feel that day. You might feel like 2 pitches are working that day and the other two aren't, or you might feel you have good feel for 1 pitch that you normally don't throw that day, so you might throw it more. So you never know. You just try to, as you get older, you try to feel pitches too. And like I said, like as you mature, like Grayson said, he's maturing faster than most people would. So you see him in the big leagues and he's getting that. So he's like, okay, I like this pitch. I know when to use it, when not to use it, when to subtract it, when to not. And you see how much success he's had. I mean, that's what guys as it takes more than just talent to succeed in the big leagues for sure, because it's the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah, he's. I think he said he's like, I don't want to get beat with my third or fourth best pitch too.
Exactly.
So it's like, why in like a crunch time, like a big count, why would I drop a cutter in there when I'm like, I don't really love this? Like,
exactly.
Do you find yourself with that, like with your other pitches, like? If it's like a 3-2 count to somebody and you can't walk him, it's like, I'm not going to try to drop in the 2-seamer, rather just go to what I know.
Yeah, 100%. That's what you go with what you're most confident with for sure. And so if your bread and butter is like your slider, you're going to go with your slider. If your bread and butter is your curveball, you're going to go with your curveball. If your bread and butter is you normally have two that you can normally be like, hey, I can drop these in here, and this is what I'm most confident with. But like you said, you don't want to get beat with your third, fourth, fifth best pitch. So 3-2, like you're going with mano a mano, your best stuff, like to figure it out.
I always think it's cool when starters become relievers because you're right. They come into being a relief pitcher with all of those other pitches. Like, have you found that's been a thing that's like helped you have success in that relief pitcher role, is having that kind of old school starter? Like, I got 4, I have a different mentality. Like, what other ways being a starter helped you in your reliever career?
I think it's just mainly been the command of the pitches, because as a starter, like you have to go so many innings. Like back in the day, like we were like, hey, you're throwing 100 pitches, like regardless, pretty much every game. So you have to like try to be efficient, just like you are now, like they are now. But like at the time, like you just try to figure it out. So like I've thrown those pitches so many times at this point that it's like I had to learn how to command those properly. And you're working throughout the week as a starter on your bullpens to make sure you're commanding these pitches as well. So I feel like that's what it's helped me as mostly, is my command of my pitches and being able to, throw my off speed for strikes more than, when some guys as relievers are coming up when they just have pure stuff.
How did you become more of a slider dominant pitcher? I love Baseball Savant. I think you're like 55% sliders now. How did that kind of change throughout the course of your career? Because I feel like most guys, they rely on the heater, but I look at you and you're more slider guy. How did that kind of happen throughout your career?
I've always kind of been like that, but like when I was younger, for sure, when I was a starter, you were taught to work off your fastball. But there's, some games where guys are fastball hitters, and I had a good slider that I started doing more sliders. And then from there, when I became, a reliever, I was like, hey, my slider's really good. Like it's like I'm striking guys out enough on this. So why wouldn't I use it more before the analytics started getting there? And then the analytics and teams started using it, and they were like, hey, you need to be like 65, 75% slider. And I was like, that might be a little too much, but like we can get in there together. But they definitely have always wanted me to be mainly a slider guy just because of the metrics on it and the analytics on it. So that's just kind of been my career.
How does your slider differ from the sweeper that everybody talks about, that all the teams want their guys to throw?
I think I vary mine a lot. Like I can play with mine. I can make it a little sweeperish, but I can also kind of make it tighter and like cutterish at the same point. I kind of vary it from time to time if I'm feeling really good. So I have 2 separate ones. It's not as sweepery, but I can make it go more, I guess, on a clock. If you're looking at a clock, it'd be like 2 to 7, and I can do that from time to time. Whereas I could do like a 3 to 8 or something like that. I can vary them between those two from time to time, depending on like where I place, like how the ball feels sometimes. So
Dang, I didn't know that. That's so cool that like there's
yeah,
like multiple variations of each one. Have teams like have you seen the sweeper like revolution that's taken place across baseball? I just feel like every team wants their guys to throw it. Every time I look, the people are talking about it on the
yeah.
broadcast. Like it's wild to see one pitch do that.
No, 100%. It is. It's something that like everybody wants to throw a sweeper now, so it's crazy. But I mean, it's a great pitch. Like if you can perfect it, because it moves so much, but it's so hard to control for a lot of guys. So when it's good though, it's dominating. So I think it's just a fad right now. I think you see like
Yeah.
we go through them all the time. Like you see it with the cutters for a little bit. When cutters first started coming out, everybody's like, "Oh, you got to throw a cutter." Then you threw a cutter, and then everybody's like, "Okay, you got to throw a splitter." Now you got to throw a sweeper. Like I think as long as you throw strikes, I don't think it matters.
I like that. I was gonna ask, like, yeah, what other fads have you seen in baseball? I feel like it's like velocity was a big one. Like everybody,
It's still
yeah,
velocity still is one. I mean,
velocity
it's
still
always
still king.
yeah. I think it always is one, but I feel like you're seeing a lot more of not a lot more, but you're seeing a trend where guys are starting to have starters that are like 89 to like 92, 93 again, and then you're bringing in the high velocity guys at the end because I mean it does give guys as a human like it's hard to see like those different speeds like all the time. You know what I mean? Throughout a whole game. Whereas if you're just facing guys throwing 95 from the start and your relievers are throwing 95 plus, it's not that much of a difference.
I'll give you a name of like somebody that I just came to mind when you said that. How about Ben Lively from the Guardians?
Yeah,
Guys dropping like 90, 92, and he's just like a quality start king this year. Every time I look, it's 6 innings, 3 runs. Like
yeah,
I feel like this is gonna be a thing for guys like him who can have success not throwing 97.
yeah, for sure. You look at the Cubs, like they've got like 3 or 4 guys that are all just like 90 to 93 guys, 94 guys as their starters. They got a couple lefties, a couple righties, like, and
Yeah.
then like their bullpen's a mix of everybody. Like, and they're winning games. You
Yeah.
even look at the Twins. Like, most of the starters are 90 to 93, 95. You know, and then you have power arms at the back end.
I like
They've
that.
had
Yeah.
success.
Gotta have different looks from different parts of the game. I talked about James Wood before we started recording, but I watch a lot of Nats baseball. I went to his debut on Monday. James Wood has worked like every count he's been in. I feel like it's been 3-2. As a pitcher, when a guy is super patient like that and is like making you throw all your stuff and is making you work, like how do you approach pitching to somebody who is going to want to take it at 3-2 consistently?
You just try to stay aggressive and make your pitches. That's all you can do. Like, and if you get beat, you get beat. Like same as any other time for sure. Like if they're working counts, they're working counts. Like you try to just make your pitches. You see that a lot with the guys that are coming up from the minor leagues now with the ABS systems and the robotic umpires and stuff. They have, you know, a more keen eye now because they kind of know what the zone is. They know how far off the zone is. So they come up and they're like spitting on balls or like working more counts because guys are used to having a little couple, like a little bit more off the plate in the big leagues. And then, they're questioning the umpires when they're first coming up here to a certain extent. And it's just, I mean, but you just throw your stuff. You attack as much as you can, and you go about your job. And if you get beat, you just get beat. That's the way I look at it now. 100%. That's how I look at it now.
Yeah. And it also does it kind of depend on like who's behind him too, because like we've had
Hmm.
pitchers on here before. It's like I'd rather just walk him, to be honest. Like that's all part of it too, right?
100%. Like it depends on the situation. Depends on where you're at in the game, who's behind them. If there's somebody on base, like how the first 3 pitches of the at bat went. Sometimes, like it just depends on a lot of different stuff. It's a chess match within a chess match. And it just becomes fun.
Do you enjoy that aspect of it? Do you enjoy that whole like going after him, playing chess?
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Do you
love
nerd
watching
out on some of
guys.
that stuff?
I don't nerd out like as much as probably a lot of guys do, and a lot of guys should, or I should probably. I have a good memory of like how I face hitters, and I like watch swings through at bats and through games and things of that nature. So I try to like base it off of that and how they're playing at that time, and then just working from there. I don't really nerd out too much on it because I feel like the best like indicator of anything is like how the guy's swinging at a pitch at that moment. Because I mean, what he does every day is like one thing, but like at that moment, he could be seeing you really well compared to like other guys. He could be seeing like something that you're tipping on a specific thing that he's fouling off or whatever else. He could just be having a good day. You never know. So like I don't nerd out too much on a lot of those things. I just try to base it on like the here and now on that.
I like that. What's the longest AB you've ever had? Has there been somebody that's taken you like 15 plus?
Um, I think there probably has been. I can't remember. I think an at bat in Venezuela one time where I remember it was super long when I was pitching down there, and I just flipped in like the slowest curveball like ever just to see if the guy was like, because I was just like, bro, just swing it, like just ground out already, like please just ground out. And I just like flipped this ball and he grounded out at first, and we just both started laughing. And I think there's one time in Japan too where this one guy, he was known for just fouling every pitch off, and I was just like, Jesus Christ, like just get out. Like I was throwing balls like right down the middle, and he was just fouling them off instead of putting them in play. I was just like, this makes no sense. So I think I ended up walking him though. But like I was just like, I've had a few back in the day, like for sure. You try not to. That's the goal. You try not to at all. Like if they're over like 6 pitches, I'm just like, all right, like whatever.
It's like, what are you looking
get
for
out.
at that point?
Yeah, just get out.
Do something.
Get out. Yeah.
And in the bigs though, who are some of the most patient guys that like that like they're not going to be they're not going to fool on anything. They're going to be swinging at the good stuff. They're going to be taking the bad stuff. Like who are some of the most patient guys you've seen?
Bryce Harper's been up there for sure. Bryce Harper's been up there. You see a lot of guys for the Orioles are very patient. Gunner's very patient for sure. Gunner Adley's pretty patient. Who else? I'm trying to think of guys like I faced this year. Because last year was like I was getting guys out pretty quick, so it wasn't like really patient. But Shohei's pretty patient. I give him that. Shohei's pretty patient. The Dodgers team's pretty patient. Like the different philosophies. Like I think the Braves are pretty aggressive at times. But it just depends on different hitting philosophies at each team too. You know, the Blue Jays get to be aggressive at times. Like they get to be very aggressive. You know, the Twins are pretty aggressive too. So it just depends on I feel like hitting philosophies as well. The Yankees are pretty patient.
So the first pitch of an at bat. I
forgot Juan Soto. Juan Soto's patient, like for sure. Especially depending on the situation, he can be very, very, very patient.
How are you supposed to pitch to Juan Soto? Like, what's the book on Soto?
You hope he gets himself out.
Really?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, for me, like you try to make your good pitches to him, and you don't like get into him finding a rhythm. Like if he reads you, because he's good at reading pitchers. Like if you fall into a rhythm, like he watches the game too. He knows he's really smart at baseball. Like people don't give him enough credit for how he approaches the game of baseball, but he's very smart at what he does. So he's very patient. He knows the situations. He knows what he's looking for. And if you fall into it, he'll get you. And Rafael, as aggressive as Rafael Devers is, he's such a patient and bad ball hitter that it's crazy to think of. Like people think that like he's always out front and stuff, but his hands stay back so well. So those are 2 guys too.
We interrupt this episode to bring you a word from the official sponsor of Not For Long Media and the Breaking Bats podcast, the original Fudge Kitchen. It is a staple of the Jersey Shore with 6 locations in Cape May, Wildwood, North Wildwood, Stone Harbor, and Ocean City. The original Fudge Kitchen makes all of their fudge in store, guaranteeing a delicious product, so stop by and let them know that Not For Long Media and Breaking Bats sent you. Check them out online at fudgekitchens.com as they are shipping fudge and sweet treats all across the country. Now back to the episode. Yeah. I always hear that like the first pitch of the at bat is usually the best one for the hitters. I feel like guys are like, I feel like everybody who's in the bigs right now, like they're hitting like 500 off the first pitch. As a pitcher, How do you kind of approach the first pitch of an at bat? Because guys are going up there looking to do damage. What are you trying to do first pitch to get ahead, but also not give up something?
Um, it depends. Some guys, kind of before you go in there, like what guys are trying to do damage on the first pitch and what guys aren't. They kind of, some guys are more patient, like you said, and some guys are more aggressive. So, if you know the scouting report on it, then you kind of just you follow like who's who, and you try to make a good quality pitch the first pitch of the at bat. And like I said, I feel like if we make a good pitch, then they're going to get out more times than they're not. So I just do it. You try to look at it like that. So you just try to make a good pitch and then get themselves up. If they get a hit, then they get a hit. And again, they're having a good day or they're a really good hitter. You just tip your hat and go to the next guy.
Yeah. I had a question about working with catchers. How long does it take you to develop like a good rapport with somebody you're working with behind the plate?
Normally it's not too long. Normally, like guys that are pros, like they're in the big leagues and catching for a reason. So they are good at their jobs and they know how to handle a pitching staff. So they understand you. And normally catchers are guys that they take time out of their day to come meet you, especially if you're a new guy, and the pitching staff to understand what you like to do, how you want to throw this, that, and the third. They don't just look at, the scouting report. They take the time to come introduce themselves and like, okay, what do you like to do this? They catch your bullpens and, then, you get comfortable. It shouldn't take that long. It normally takes like spring training's more than enough time normally to get that done.
Yeah, I watch a lot of Orioles, and I feel like Adley Rutschman and these guys, they become like best friends. He's giving them hugs when they come off the mound. Like, I had a question about Buster Posey though, back in San Francisco. What was it like working with him, and could you notice that he did things differently than all the other ones?
Well, I got the older Buster, and Buster was like just like doing everything he could to play. Like, you could tell that like Buster had been catching and playing baseball for a long time, just like I have. So, but you could tell that like he set up and the way he caught pitches was a little bit different. He worked. He was so smart behind the plate. He had me doing things, but at that time that I hadn't, previously done as like a pitcher. So I was like, okay, he was calling pitches that I hadn't thrown before. So it was cool to have him work behind me and follow his lead to a certain extent. So it was tight. So I enjoyed like pitching the Buster Posey for sure. Big shout outs to Buster for that.
I love that. Yeah, we've had other Giants pitchers on before, just talking about like, yeah, how cerebral of a catcher he is. But so you caught him at the end of his career back in 21. Like, what else did you notice? Like, was it just like the way his body moved? Like, could he not like frame the low ones as well as he used to?
No, he could do it. He could do everything. I was just saying like his preparation, like the amount of like, because I mean, as you get older, and especially catchers, like the amount of time it takes you to get ready for a game. Like getting work on like in the training room, making sure your hips and everything, you're like that your body's ready to go to be able to catch that many games. So just that aspect of it. I think Buster still had years left, like to play. I think the time that it took him to get ready to play was like the issue.
Gotcha. Who were some of your other favorite catchers throughout your career, and like what did they do that you like so much?
Let's see. Buster's up there. Kurt was on that team. Kurt was up there too. Loved having Kurt. Danny Jansen last year was one of my guys. Who else? Who else did I have? I had the Braves. I wasn't up there long enough to have any of those guys as much as I should have, so I can't say too much about those guys. Let's see. I had Yasmani Grandal. Yaz was one of my favorites for sure. Just the preparation he took and knowing the hitters and how he knew the pitchers as well. Yaz was up there. I loved Yaz. Yaz was a good guy.
That's awesome.
Yaz was all about business too, so I loved
it. Playing last year in Toronto in the AL East, I always like to hear guys' perspectives of what it's like to play in like what I believe is the best division in baseball. Can you describe what it was like facing some of those teams like the Yankees, the Red Sox? Like how did that, how was your experience playing in the big bad AL East last year?
I loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was fun. That was the reason I wanted to pitch there, is to face those guys and to be in those situations. And so it was fun to have those things happen and be part of those games and be part of that division and, help the team get a wild card berth. So it's fun. I love being over there.
Of all the opposing stadiums that you've played in, what's the toughest? It could be like the lineup, the fans, the atmosphere. What are some of the toughest places to play?
I don't think there. I think Boston's probably one of the toughest, but I don't know if it's necessarily. I would say tough. Like I love those situations. I love those like venues. Like LA was awesome. Like playing in Dodger Stadium is awesome. Wrigley's always fun. Um, where else? There's a couple places in Japan. Tokyo Dome was definitely one of my favorites. Where else? Koshin Stadium was huge. Like those were two of the best places to pitch to. So they're not tough. They're fun for me. I love having those atmospheres.
Enjoy the challenge. I like that. I was looking last year. Where does your win against the Dodgers in LA, the 2 scoreless innings, like where does that rank in the moments for your career?
Um, I don't think it's in the top five, but it was just a fun thing to do. Like that was like that's like for me, that's what I was supposed to do. That's was that was one of the fun moments that I have in my career because I've had a lot of good moments. I've had a lot of big moments, and so people recognize that one just because I was in LA. But like I've had a lot of other great baseball moments in my career in AAA, in the big leagues, in Japan especially, and winter ball especially, like playing down there. So it wasn't in the top five, but it was one of the funner moments I've had for sure.
That's a great point, though. Yeah, I guess you're right. Because yeah, it's like you always think like the Dodgers, and everybody kind of puts them on this like higher level. It's yeah.
Mm.
This year in Minnesota, that was I think it was the first time you've made an MLB opening day roster, right? How
That's
special is that for you?
That was the goal. That was the goal that I've set out for since I came back home from Japan. Was to be on a major league roster for opening day, and then to be on a major league roster for Jackie Robinson Day, and be in uniform and have my uniform for those games, and actually be active for those games. So those were kind of the two of the last check boxes I wanted to have in my career. The last one is playing in a World Series, but we'll see if that comes true or not. So but that was huge. That was fun. That was one of the better moments of my career for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. Because yeah, I mean, like I said, you've had this great long career, but yeah, that was the first time.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple of last quick questions for you. 2019, you talked about it with Milwaukee. You played with Corbin Burns, and I wanted to ask because you caught Corbin. I think he was coming out of the bullpen then. He didn't have a ton of success, but could you always tell that like the stuff was there and that he was going to go on to do good things?
Yeah. Corbin's stuff was always absolutely gross. Like that was the funny thing about it. Like we always saw it, but he couldn't like he just never when I was there, he just didn't figure it out yet. So nobody like that whole year he couldn't figure it out. I think it was that year and the year before. And then I think in what 2020 or 2021 he figured it out and just took off. And like we always saw the ability. It was just, him figuring out like how to use it really. And so yeah, I mean, am I surprised? No. But like it's awesome to see how much success he's having, and I'm hoping that he has even more on the way coming, and has a very very long career and does everything he's dreamed of doing for sure.
He's one of my favorite pitchers to watch. Just an absolute bulldog out there.
Yeah.
Um, I have a question about reliever entrance songs. I feel like every time you come out of the bullpen, it's got to be electric. Do you have a reliever entrance song?
This year I've had two. I normally change them depending on what city I'm in and what state I'm in, depending on like what team I'm with. Like last year in Toronto, I had Drake. In AAA last year, I had Lil Uzi in Buffalo, and then this year, at first I had Key Glock as one of my entrance songs, and now I have um, a song that my fiance loves um, as my walkout now. So it's it varies from wherever I'm at, and I think when I go back to the big leagues this year, if I go back, then I'm gonna do Prince since we're in Minnesota. So it's gonna switch again. We'll see where I'm at next year. I'll probably have something different.
That's such a great way to like, yeah, ingratiate yourself with the city. Like, yeah, like David Bednar in Pittsburgh does like the Steelers one. So like,
Yeah.
Has there been somebody you've played with in your career that's had an amazing walkout, or just like somebody that you're like, dang, I wish I could steal that?
I don't think I've ever just wanted to steal it. Like the closers' entrances now are so good. I wish that we would have had those when I was like in winter ball and like stuff like that back in the day. And like I wish they would have had it like more back in the day than just like Mariano and stuff. Like I wish all the teams did it because like it probably would have been like it would probably brought some more people over to the baseball side earlier. So, but I like how they do the lights and everything for all the closers now. Like Johan Duran's for the Twins is unbelievable. I love his. His is awesome.
I was gonna say, how cool is that? Because he has like fire flames on the big board, and it's like the
Yeah,
whole stadium's
awesome.
buzzing.
Yeah, it's awesome. Love his.
I looked, and you've had 3 at bats in the show. What was that like getting to swing the bat again?
I think there's only one time that I actually swung the bat. I think the other time, like I they told me not to swing, and I think another time, I think I sack bunted or something like that. Something. It was like those were my 3 at bats. And like I said, the one time they told me not to swing the bat because I had to go pitch the next inning, so they're like, "Don't even take the bat off your shoulder." And then the other time I did swing, I think it was against Tuki Toussaint, who actually ended up being my teammate. And he struck me out, but I fouled off like 2 or 3 pitches before he did, so it was kind of cool. But that was fun. I always wanted to have at bats in the big league, so I got to do that, because I got to hit in the minors. I have a couple home runs in the minors, so that's kind of fun.
Dang,
But yeah,
because you were a 2A player coming out of college, right?
yeah. I played outfield. I played the corners and then all the outfield positions in college. Yeah.
Yeah, that's just because like relief pitchers, they typically, I don't think, really ever get a chance to hit unless, I guess, it was like maybe like a blowout situation. What
Yeah.
were the game situations where they're like, hey Jay, go grab a bat?
One of them, I think the game was close. I was just pitching and I was throwing well, and they didn't want to take me out to go because this was before they had the DH all the time. So they were like, "Hey, if your spot in the lineup comes up, you're gonna go hit, but you're not gonna go swing the bat because we want you to pitch anything." And I was so far down the lineup that they didn't think I was gonna get there, but something crazy happened, and I ended up getting there and went up there and didn't swing. The other couple times, same thing. I was going to pitch the next inning anyway, so they let me hit. So
Love that. Yeah, it's part of the game that we'll sorely miss. Yeah, pitchers hitting. Okay, a couple last ones. The bullpen, I feel like, always has like the highest amount of characters. It's just the funniest place to be, I feel like, at any given point in a game. Who are some of the funniest guys you've shared a bullpen with?
funniest guys. Well, all my Japanese teammates were funny. It's like they were hilarious. But in the big leagues, one of my good friends this year, Steven Okert. Okert's hilarious. Love Okert in the bullpen. I've had Caleb Delbar with me in the bullpen in the big leagues and in AAA before, so love Delbar. Let's see. Um, who else? Let's see. The Jeremy Jeffers was funny. Oh, sorry. Jeremy Jeffers was funny. He was a good guy to have in the bullpen. Zach Littell, Dominic Leone, um, had Taylor Rogers. Had a lot of great guys in the bullpens. Let's see, my AAA bullpens have been like probably better than my big league bullpens, honestly. So we're gonna just the AAA bullpens are always fun. So we'll leave that right there. But the big leagues, I've had a lot of great guys, a lot of good friends that I've met out there, a lot of great teammates. All the guys in Toronto last year were great. Swanson, Romano, Yimi. Who else? Genesis was awesome. Like half of the bullpen in the year. Jordan Hicks was there a little bit. Tim and Jordan's relationship was hilarious. Nate Pearson was up there with us. But you just I mean the bullpen, like you said, it's just a bunch of great guys down there just goofing off until it's time to go to work. And then you see how serious and how much work everybody puts in. So it's you trust those guys, and it's like a family, it's like a brotherhood down there. So it's just like having a bunch of brothers just goofing off until like I said, it's time to go to work.
It's the best. When you guys play in Oakland and Tampa, when you have the bullpens that are like on the field, what's that like? Have you ever had a foul ball almost hit one of you guys?
Oh yeah, plenty of times. That always happens. Like you just try to get you either hold steady and wear it or you get out of the way. It just depends. Like you kind of know depending on how the ball's hit.
I think I was watching like the Rays this year, and like the Rays ball boy who was like right in front of the bullpen was like making like Sports Center top 10 catches in front of them, and it was just like,
And they were all
you're
just like in awe. Like yeah,
yep. He was like acrobatically catching shit, but I was like, whoa, who's this guy? That yeah, it's a part of the game you don't see often is the bullpens that are out on the field.
yeah. No, it's awesome. They don't have them that much anywhere anymore. You see them all like even in the minors. Like most of the bullpens are, behind the wall or. And I think that's great because I mean you don't want to get hit by a foul ball in the first place, but it is kind of old school to have them there, and it's nice to see every now and then. But it's good to be able to warm up in peace.
Absolutely. Yeah, I feel like that's what you guys need. All right, last question. This has been incredible. What is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Oh, I think the best piece of advice I've ever received is probably, you know, stay true to yourself. I think that's, I think that's probably the best piece I've had. Because that, and then when it comes to baseball, is keep having fun at it. Like I said, every time anything's ever happened with baseball, the first question everybody asks me is, "Are you still having fun?" And so, if you're having fun, then like I said, that means you're living your dream, right? So that's why in baseball I'd say keep having fun, and in life just stay true to yourself. And
Love
also I would say do what makes you happy, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. That's kind of like what my mom's always told me, and kind of like what I kind of follow. Like, hey, like as long as I'm doing something fun and something that's um, you know good and like happy for me, and I'm not hurting other people, like that's the best thing. Like I'm good.
Yeah, I'd love both of those. Yeah, I think, dude, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed this one. Best of luck the rest of this way with the twin system. Hopefully, we'll get a call back up to the show here soon. And until then, yeah, best. And hey, check out the Brushback Podcast,
Yeah,
teamjaxland.com. Well, yeah, this has been incredible. Thank you, dude.
appreciate it. Thanks, man. Thanks for having me on.